Hey, what up, jerks? Good evening. 6:03 p.m. We're just about on time. Hope you're having a great beginning of your week. Like, what day is it right now? Every day since Karen Reed has been acquitted of the major charges, I've been like that. What day is today? It's a little bit of a high. It's great, and we have a great show tonight. So I'm very happy for the show tonight. I just want to make sure you know right at the beginning. I'll put it on the screen too. People forget. We're going to read the super chats at the end of the show. So if you have a question tonight or you want to have a comment, just put it in the regular chat for free. If you want to support the show, if you want me to read your super chat at the end of the show, definitely you can do so. But the easiest way to get a question in for a guest tonight, just post it. Post it early, often, repeatedly, and hope that we see it. Doesn't look like there's that many people here right now, so early is better. Let's do this. We have some great guests tonight. We've got returning to the show, Attorney Mark Bederow is here tonight. We also have a first-time guest, retired FBI agent that I'm very happy. She goes on social media as Jodene Weber. Her real name is what she likes to be called is Jodie, so we're going to call her Jodie Weber tonight. Very happy to have them here tonight. And with no further ado, we're just going to bring them right up. Jodie, how you doing tonight?
I'm well. Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Attorney Mark Bederow, for being back here.
How are you?
Excellent. Doing good. How you doing?
Good. Good.
Feeling, I mean, you got to be geared up because you're coming to Boston on July 7th, I know, right? Or Dedham.
Yeah, next week, right? Next Monday, we have court. Yep, I'll be there.
Are you excited to be back in Massachusetts or is it just the whole hum for you?
There's pros and
work.
cons. It's work. It's interesting case. It's travel. But, no, I'm happy to be. There's some people I'm looking forward to seeing. But, it's not that far. So, yeah, I'm happy to be back.
Awesome.
So I'll be back more regularly now.
And I think people are pumped up. I know, like, everybody was so bummed that you didn't get to be a part of the Karen Reed trial. And they've been waiting for you to get in on this next, these other cases. So I think everyone's pumped up that they're going to get to hopefully watch you do your thing in Massachusetts.
Yeah, although, trials are still quite a ways off. But yeah,
Absolutely.
eventually it'll happen.
Absolutely. And let's get to the first-time guest, Jodie. You are a retired FBI agent. Tell us about yourself and how you started. You're on YouTube. You've written a book, a fiction book. Tell us about yourself and where you're at right now.
Correct. Well, I'm a 22-year veteran of the FBI. I was a special agent from 1997 until 2020 when I retired. Prior to that, I was a television news anchor and a television journalist in Wisconsin. And during the course of my career, I worked domestic terrorism, international terrorism, white-collar crime for about half my career, very complex healthcare fraud cases, drug diversion, things of that nature. And then I was also a team leader on an evidence response team for the FBI. So my career took me to 3 different field offices and a lot of international travel and enjoyed it immensely. But then in 2020, right before the pandemic, I retired and I started my podcast, Caught in My Web, on Patreon about 2.5 years ago. And that's daily. I cover true crime, all the big cases. I'm hearing Kohberger has just accepted a plea deal tonight. So that will be the lead story tomorrow. And then, as you said, yes, about a month ago, I did publish my book, The Bald-Faced Deception, which has been a lifelong dream of mine. It's a psychological suspense novel, and it's dedicated to all 9/11 responders, which I am. I've had a number of health issues due to my response to the Pentagon for 16 days. And so one of the characters is influenced by what I went through. So it's getting a lot of very good reviews and a lot of positive response from first responders. So I'm proud of that.
I feel like the first responders got enough support because there's been some bills in Congress and things going on there. What's the latest on that?
I do not. A lot of the funding could be better. There's a lot of testing and the monitoring that the funding for that has been cut. And of course, I'm part of the World Trade Center Health Program to be monitored and studied. And the more they study people like me who have been exposed to those great toxins, the more we can help first responders like out in California fighting the fires, people who respond to hurricane devastated areas, anywhere where you have these toxins. You know, people forget that it's not just law enforcement or firefighters or EMT. You also have excavation crews, clergy, journalists, local citizens, farmers, agricultural workers. All these people can be affected when all these toxins are released due to fires or buildings that are destroyed. So it's something that really matters to me, and I'm pleased with the response the book is getting.
Awesome. That's great. How is the book doing?
It's doing well. It's doing very, very well. For a debut novelist, I'm quite pleased. And the reviews are fantastic, so I couldn't ask for more.
Excellent. I like that it's got a little message in there too, and we'll definitely try to promote that tonight in the chat.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, big thing I wanted to have you on tonight was a number of things, but the Karen Read stuff. I guess I'd just ask you first and foremost, what do you think about the whole Karen Read retrial? And you know, you said evidence team, the evidence response team, or recovery. What it sounds like the CERT, the Massachusetts CERT team, in a way.
Essentially, it is. Essentially,
yeah, we had a lot of problems here in Massachusetts. What would you say about the way things are being run in Massachusetts related to the Karen Read and Sandra Birchmore?
Well, I can tell you in 22 years in the FBI, we never used red Solo cups or a leaf blower like that. Definitely not. I am highly disturbed by what I saw. The lack of chain of custody, the lack of contemporaneous documentation, the laying the clothing out unsecured for multiple days on butcher paper, the glass on the bumper that didn't match anything else, and there was no follow-up investigation, the hair fiber that just miraculously survived this 60-mile-per-hour trip, the fact that the crime scene wasn't secure, it wasn't processed properly, there was no measurement, there was no gridding, the photography was terrible. It was a disaster, and it's an embarrassment not only to Canton PD, but also to the Massachusetts State Police. I couldn't believe the testimony I heard during trial number 1, where there was an officer who said, well, I don't know how to use evidence response tape or evidence tape. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's just absurd. So I have a lot of problems with that. And the good news is that it has caused so much dialogue and commentary that people are becoming aware of the proper ways that crime scenes should be processed. And the shameful part is that, you know, here this is a police officer dead on a lawn, and this is the kind of evidence response he gets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially for a cop in Massachusetts specifically, where
at a cop's home. At a cop's home.
At a cop's home, across the street from the deputy police chief, friends of the cops. Yeah, just.
And to take it further, you know, it's not just the evidence at the crime scene. It's the fact that I've been saying for 2 years, I never could understand, even about a year before trial number 1, I could never understand why wasn't there a neighborhood canvass. Every prosecutor I've ever worked for has always wanted more evidence. The more you can get them, the better. And so as an investigator, I would have gone out to find any video I could of that taillight. That's what a prosecutor would want. So the fact that they didn't have cameras from that every route possible between 34 Fairview Road and 1 Meadows Avenue was just inconceivable to me. And then there were other things that I thought, well, I can understand, you know, when prior to interviewing the plow driver, that you didn't know that there was potentially this Ford Edge. But once you found out there was this Ford Edge that moved and nobody had seen a body on the lawn, why wouldn't you get a search warrant for that Ford Edge? Why wouldn't you get a search warrant for the house? And after Canton PD didn't get a search warrant for the house, after going to the hospital and seeing John O'Keefe's arm injuries, why wouldn't you say, well, that looks like a dog, that looks like an animal. Why wouldn't you get a search warrant then? After the medical examiner did the autopsy and couldn't rule this as a vehicular strike, why wouldn't you get one at that point? None of it made any sense to me.
Totally. Mark, you have any follow up on that, or any
Not
questions?
really. I mean, I concur 100%. I've discussed a lot of that. I agree with, I think, almost virtually everything you said. And I'm just kind of chuckling here, saying for those who are watching, this is what a real retired FBI agent looks, sounds like, analyzes, integrity, and so on and so on. So
Thank you.
A refreshing breath. Well, that doesn't make much sense, but a breath, fresh air to see what somebody who did have real experience in the FBI understands how crime scenes works, instead of trying to exploit their past credential and having no there in anything they do or say. And so it's encouraging to hear.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, even small things, like I was thinking the other day, I used to work complex financial crimes. I'm a nerd when it comes to financial records. I would have tried to get subpoenas for the Alberts finances and look to see, all right, where do they buy their pet supplies? Do they have pig ears that they purchased through any sort of pet store or through Amazon or Chewy.com?
When did that stop, right? Like, because that's when you're a pet owner. If you give up your dog, that's when those purchases stop.
Right.
They had no intellectual curiosity, is the way I phrase it, the cops, in terms of looking anywhere other than Karen, which is tunnel vision and an investigative. No. I mean, they're supposed to be agnostic and follow the evidence, and it certainly can lead to theories, suspicions, suspects, target the focus of the investigation, but you're not supposed to literally put on, blinders and ignore all these other things that are potentially looking you in the face. I mean, you owe it to the integrity of the investigation. You owe it to John O'Keefe and his family to hunt it down and see where it is. And they never tried to do it, ever. That's just a fact.
Never. Still haven't. They're still not doing it.
Well, and the fact that Yuri Buchanan tries to justify that it was an investigation of integrity, I mean, that's just laughable. It's just laughable. I mean, this could not have been a worse investigation. There's so many holes, like the jurors said, so many holes in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, Buchanan is an embarrassment to the state police. That's not, exactly a controversial view. I think his demeanor as a witness is embarrassing. His arrogance is embarrassing. His, frankly, intimidating witnesses over rubber duckies is embarrassing. His refusal to investigate is embarrassing. His refusal to acknowledge that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator is embarrassing. His refusal to do anything about the text messages he got from Proctor is embarrassing. Everything about him is embarrassing. And, that's the key state police employee that they put up to be their guy at the retrial, which of course makes the district attorney's office look embarrassing. All of this is embarrassing.
Totally. Yeah, it's you mentioned earlier about an FBI agent, kind of alluded to, that is on everyone's mind tonight, because a lot of people thought when I said retired FBI agent coming on the show tonight, they thought we were talking about Jennifer Coffindaffer. People got like really mad. They were like, "You're having her on? What do you?" We're not having her on. We have the real FBI agent here tonight. But she put out this statement about Michael Easter, the FBI special witness that wasn't allowed to testify at the Karen Reed trial. And she recently on Twitter, called him a grifter, alleged that he was a grifter. What do you say to that, Jodie, first, and we'll go to Mark after that?
Well, I've never met Jennifer Coffindaffer, and I've never met Michael Easter either. However, I've seen commentary done by both. My view on the case aligns with Michael Easter. But I did see the tweet that you're referring to, and I saw Linda Kenny Bodden pretty much call out Jennifer Coffindaffer and called her vile for being so inflammatory. So I was really, I don't like that. I don't think that was deserved. I don't know where she was basing her commentary on, or if she was just being defensive. I can't speak for her, but I will say that what I have viewed on Twitter by her I've responded to her and called her out on things. Most notably, prior to trial number 1, during trial number 1, in between the 2 trials, during trial number 2, I would repeatedly see her make tweets about Karen Reed and denying her due process, calling her a killer, calling her a special kind of evil. I mean, and putting this in writing. Karen is entitled to due process. She is like every other defendant. She is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And that disturbed me. That disturbed me because there's so few women who do accomplish becoming a special agent in the FBI. We're definitely still the minority. And so when you see that, it hurts us all. You know, it does reflect poorly. And so I would just hope that, you know, she would do better in the future and not do that, because I just don't think it reflects well. I really don't. And people are calling her out for it. They are holding her feet to the fire.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I want to have you on here tonight, is to show people, other FBI agents that aren't like Jennifer Coffindaffer.
She's not going to do better because she's a disgrace and an embarrassment. And in my view, just a complete fraud. She exploits her former career, literally in her Twitter handle, reminds everyone. She disgraces the agency that she used to work for. I think she embarrasses other, you know, respected former agents because they say that's what a former agent is, a clown like her. I think she disrespects the current agents when, as Jodie just said, she's making a mockery out of someone's right to due process and whatnot. But that's what she is. I mean, this is what she does. She is a grief grifter. She kind of shapeshifts and goes from case to case, takes the sympathetic side, which is understandable, and then just tries to give analysis, which in fact is not analysis. It's just her opinion and restating cliche and truisms wrapped up as credible analysis because she's an ex-FBI agent. She has nothing original to offer. She has no intelligence whatsoever. She has no understanding of how police investigative work happens, which is frightening given her prior career. She harasses, you know, calls names with somebody. She's an ex-FBI agent. She's doing what she does to Karen and other people. The people that she aligns with, at least in the Karen Reed case, are people who, you know, are more likely to be seen, you know, living under rocks than talking to distinguished ex-FBI agents. And she does it for clicks and engagement and gets platformed, makes a fool of herself on a daily basis. She's just a complete joke, embarrassment. And, you know, she'll still throw a few darts in the Karen Reed case, but she's a grief grifter. She'll be on to the next one. I'm sure she's very upset about what happened in Idaho because that grift is essentially up for her. So I'm sure she'll give a few comments about sympathy for the victims, which we all would, any sane person would agree with. She'll make a few cliche statements about, you know, why the defendant did it and whether it's fair or not. And then she'll shapeshift and move on to the next grief grift, whatever case that is. She's a joke and should be ignored by everyone. She doesn't speak for the ex-FBI agents who did real work. She doesn't speak for the current FBI agents. She should speak for nobody. She's a complete joke.
So true. And this Kohberger thing, I haven't seen anything. I've been busy today. What actually was the plea deal?
I literally just saw something the minute before we went live.
Really?
I heard that
I saw a tweet
for taking the death penalty off the table for consecutive life sentences, I believe. Is that what you heard, Mark?
Yeah, which, you know, 4 life sentences is
he's not getting out.
One. I mean, so look, that's the only other thing you can do if he essentially gets, you know, the equivalent of life without parole. If you're not going to seek the death penalty, it spares the family of a trial and all that. You know, I know there might have been some issues the prosecution was dealing with, which now kind of gets swept under the rug. But, you know, if you believe in the death penalty, and I'm not making this a political conversation, you know, if he was in fact guilty of slaughtering 4 innocent college students, one would say that would be the proper case for it, assuming you're in favor of it. But if you're not in favor of it, then it's a perfect result. It's life in prison, and it's over, and the family hopefully gets some degree of closure.
I like it's over for the families. They don't have to go through all that, That's good for them.
Well, and the surviving roommates as well, I think, and the friends that came to the house, I think that would be almost
Hard.
a re-traumatization for them. And, I think there's a lot of defense attorneys that take death penalty cases that this is a win, getting the death penalty off the table.
That's a huge win. I mean, let's assume now he's guilty. He's admitted or is about to admit he's guilty. So we don't have to, he butchered 4 innocent college students. That's as bad as it gets. So, I mean, what else can you say? I mean, he's a monster.
Thank God that I'm glad he pled guilty, because it saves everyone time, money, energy, and there was starting to be a lot of conspiracy theories too. Like you mentioned, Jodie, about some of the people who were in the house. There's been all kinds of fingers pointed everywhere. So I think this is good for everybody, even for him. Not that I care about what happens to him, but hey, like he saw that it was probably the best for him, and it does. I think it's helpful for everybody else.
It's good lawyering. It is to take the death penalty off if you're facing it and there's a realistic chance. I mean, like there are cases where the government says that they're pursuing the death penalty, and eventually it's going to get taken off or it'll never be applied. I mean, a perfect example of that is Manjoni in New York, where I am. There's no way that's ever going to end up a federal death penalty case. They're probably going to, bludgeon him to plead guilty in federal court, take it off. But in a case like this, I mean, if this guy was convicted butchering 4 kids, like we said, and it's also Idaho, which is a very different place than a federal district in New York. People probably a little more open to that, if you will. I mean, that is a win for his death penalty lawyers. Anytime they get in and they get rid of it, that's a win for them.
You spare a jury from seeing all those crime scene photographs and, and just what those families have been through. It's just terrible. So I know some of the family members did want the death penalty, but when you look at it in totality, this ensures that he will be locked away and that there won't be any further traumatization of the surviving roommates, the other students, and hopefully now these families can mourn and have this at least off the table.
Definitely. And I think
they'll send them to Florence or someplace like that, right?
That's what I'd say. I think being in federal prison for that long is probably a lot worse than the death penalty, actually. And the other thing too, like a lot of times when I'm against the death penalty because I feel like it gets enforced against the wrong people. If we could just pick the right people, I'd probably be for it. But in general though, I feel like if they put someone to death like him, let's say they did put him to death, it would just make him more of a martyr for the crazy people. That there's certain people that they like the serial killers. They think there's been this thing, this almost like fetishization. So I feel like just letting him rot in federal prison will do more to tamp that down. Whereas if you put him to death, people would just get a little more riled up. Those crazy people that would.
I'd be more worried about that with Manjoni. That he would be.
Martyr, exactly. But like Charles Manson, there's people that love Charles Manson out there.
Manjoni has cases in federal and state court, which is ridiculous. It's the Manhattan DA and the U.S. Attorney are in this rivalry of whatever. But when he appeared in Manhattan Supreme Court a few months ago, I mean, it was like the Manson family worshipers were out there applauding him. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, there was all these young women looking at him because he's a good looking.
That happened with remember the Boston Marathon bomber Dokar? There's a lot of women who still support him because he looks cute. He's got the hair. They put him on Rolling Stone. Remember that?
I worked on Eric Robert Rudolph, and it's the same thing with him. Same exact thing. And he's
that's what I get worried about. Yeah,
he's in Supermax. So
let him rot and not have any. Nobody gets to see him. Sometimes they have those. You can't go see Dokar. You can't. Even journalists can't see him.
Rudolph, though, and this is interesting. I didn't know that. didn't he become kind of a cult hero too? Because he was like out in the woods for how long? I don't remember.
It was years. It was years.
And for years. And it was kind of like, the people who are fight the man, like this guy's like beating the government and
Rambo. Yeah.
It was very, he lived in a part of North Carolina that was very anti-government. And I will say, I was part of the team that processed his campsite when he was finally arrested. And it's one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in my life, how he survived out there. And when he was arrested, he had a difficulty talking because he had very little to none human interaction for years on end. So it was almost a caveman coming out again and trying to learn to talk.
Tarzan trying to learn to talk again. Wow.
Right. I can't even begin to tell you how he had, food suspended up in trees so that the bears wouldn't get at it. And he had built dehydration systems into crevasses in the mountain. And I remember we pretty much had to rappel up to where his campsite was on the top of this mountain ridge. And that when we were hauling down all this evidence we had collected, one of the agents got their shoelace caught on some barbed wire. Well, it turned out it was a buried barrel full of his supplies. And he had barrels buried all over those mountains for years with explosives and weapons and ammunition. And it was just really, really interesting.
I hope there's not more of that stuff going on, because it seems like that kind of extremism has ratcheted up over the last decade.
Well, look at yesterday in Idaho with that horrible situation with the fire.
What's going on? Yeah, that's just exactly what I'm talking about. And that's like an area where there's a lot of that apparently too. That's scary. Definitely want to talk about some other. This is fascinating to talk about the other cases you've been involved in. I almost want to stay on it, but I want to talk about some other stuff too, which is Sandra Birchmore. I know that, Mark, you've been looking into this more. I've seen on your acts you've been asking for info about it, so I'm curious what you're looking into first and foremost, and then we'll go to Jodie on it.
I mean, I'm gathering stuff on it. I haven't really dug in yet, but I mean, it's a natural curiosity for me. I mean, it's another case with the same cast of characters that are involved in Karen's case, Aiden's case. It's the same DA's office who once again appears to have just completely screwed the pooch and screwed it up, whether it was deliberate or not. There's all kinds of just what appears to be atrocious investigation by the state police. And it appears to be just a horrible thing where they basically framed Sandra Birchmore for her own murder, if that makes sense. I mean, it's terrible. So, it's just a naturally interesting thing. And so I find it fascinating and look forward to kind of looking into it more. I mean, I have nothing to do with it. It's a curiosity thing. And, who knows what it turns up with some of the same cast of characters. But I mean, I have no role in it or anything like that. I just think it's an interesting one to get more up to speed on.
That's definitely going to be coming up too this year, hopefully. We'll see. Court's going very slowly, but federal court.
Well, I saw he just delayed a hearing, and that to me was rather interesting. Is he possibly cooperating?
He has to be. I mean, that's my thought. We talked about this online with some other people. He, had a federal detention hearing a year ago almost, and has not appeared in court since. The federal speedy trial statute is very, let's go. And he continues to waive it. In a federal court too, the judge has to sign off on that. And a lot of judges and a lot of districts will say, I don't care what you people want to do. Let's move. And the judge continues to sign off on it. And that would be very, very suggestive of, at a minimum, an attempt to cooperate, at least. Again, he may not get what he wants, and he's going to want something that's called a 5K1 letter, not to get too in the legal weeds, but where he gets blessed on the head by the U.S. attorney for his substantial cooperation. But ultimately, even for him, what is the deal going to look like? Whatever he's got to offer or not. I mean, I think life in prison, assuming the evidence bears out that he murdered Sandra Birchmore, is virtually assured. So, maybe he gets a better room of the window. Maybe he gets, the chance to get out in 50 something years or however many months, it's months in federal court. But these kind of adjournments can't be for any other reason other than the parties are at least exploring that.
I agree. I agree. And, certainly with the fact that it was recently revealed that he's not the father of the baby.
Right.
Yes.
Which was interesting because I thought originally when he was first indicted, I'm like, well, isn't he an identical twin? He's going to blame his twin brother and say he's the father of the baby. I was kind of expecting that kind of defense.
Yeah.
But then when all these hearings kept getting delayed, I'm like, well, he's cooperating and he's probably got some really interesting information as to what sort of deals were going on between the district attorney's office and, say, the state medical examiner's office, right. Various troopers.
Yeah. And the other thing again, I'm not trying to fuel the fire and I have nothing to add, but cooperation can go, can be an amorphous thing. It doesn't have to be, tell us what you know about who murdered Sandra Birchmore or who helped you. Many tentacles can derive from that. And if it relates to, like Jodie said, people in the state police or the Canton police, or why the DA's office did this, or why the ME inexplicably, butchered the finding, which, I think if you understand anything about how, strangulation works, it should have been apparent about the cause of death. Who knows what kinds of things he's heard or knows about. It may have a lot more to do with things other than just Sandra Birchmore. You don't know. And,
it makes me, I've always somewhat suspected that there was the federal investigation into the district attorney's office. That's what I believe started.
Totally.
Birchmore, and then there was a spinoff into the investigation into the death of John O'Keefe. And I think it's related to the fact that there were all those missing videos from the various systems. To me, that would be the most logical predication for a public corruption case, in that you've got 3 separate systems, all with missing video at crucial times when you would see the taillight. To me, that's just illogical that all 3 systems would fail like that. So I think a lot of it depends on what sort of metadata, if any, they were able to recover from the various systems. And there's been a lot of talk, of course, why was the case closed mid-February? Did that come due to the change in the presidential administration and new priorities within Department of Justice? Is it because they put the case in pending inactive, which is common for the FBI right before you go to trial? I used to have to put my cases into pending inactive if I was going to trial. Or did they close it down so that would give people a sense of relief and they would start talking, and they have wires up on the parallel case? I got a lot of thoughts about that. But I do think there was that pretrial hearing right at the end of February, early March, where it came out that Helena Rafferty had instructed the detective to cherry pick the video to turn over to the Commonwealth that would be beneficial to their case. And to me, I'm like, well, there's predication. If it was closed down, there's predication to reopen it right there. Additionally, Michael Proctor having that video in his desk, that's mishandling evidence. If he doesn't win his appeal, he could be looking at potential evidence tampering charges on the federal level.
The other thing, which, again, you don't know what they've done or not done, or what they've known when they apparently indicated the investigation was closed. The real wild card here is a certain sergeant in the Dighton Police Department. I don't know whether they were aware of what he was going to say at trial or not, but you would think that it would pick their interest at a minimum to hear an unaffiliated cop say that what Proctor and Buchanan were saying the taillight looked like ain't true. And what that means, if Barros were to be believed and to be credible, and that's two separate things. I believe he's telling the truth and I believe he's accurate. If you believe that, then they lied about the condition of the taillight, which means it wasn't shattered, in front of 34 Fairview, and so on and so on. And, I'd be curious to know how that factors into what, if anything, they're doing now.
And I do think there's still the opportunity that someone could flip and provide information. I don't think that's been completely exhausted.
No, definitely, especially with the guy in jail right now, and we don't know what's going on. Morissey, it was reported on this show recently. We had Juna Perkins, who's running for district attorney against Michael Morissey, and she was at a May 1st event with Michael Morissey, the Quincy Democratic caucus, to decide who were the delegates for the state convention. She gave her a little stump speech first, was criticizing the heck out of him. She got a little bit heckled, and then he got up there and he basically said, this is from her. Now, we're still looking for video. There doesn't appear to be any video, but this is what she said he said, was that he was basically denying that Sandra, was murdered. He's basically sticking to that she committed suicide, and he believes a medical examiner's original report is going to stand the test of time and it's going to work out for him. What do you take from him, that if he's still saying these things May 1st of this year, basically 60 days ago?
Well, I find that just inexplicable, because I reviewed that internal affairs investigation with Stoughton PD and those reports, and by Fanning, and that was ridiculous. And the fact that her hyoid bone was broken, the federal investigators not only had their own pathologist determine that, but then my understanding is the family had an independent evaluation, Michael Baden, right? Yeah, so, that's, right there, you got two pathologists.
2 to 1.
Right.
Yeah, 2 to 1.
Right. Well, and I think too,
two independent versus one.
Back to what I said about the state medical examiner's office. Don't forget, Michael Proctor had those text messages about, rookie mistake, about trying to influence the medical examiner to give you the manner of death that you want. To me, that's just a tip off that that's what they were doing.
I think, I have a different view from the context of why Morissey would say that. I think it's because that's what hacks do. They hack, and he's a hack, and he's running for re-election apparently. And, Karen Reed is a disaster, obviously, for him. Other things are a disaster and are going to get worse for him. And Sandra Birchmore, frankly, is the absolute worst. He whitewashed this, and, here come the feds, and they make the case pretty clearly. And this is what I was talking about earlier when you mentioned the hyoid bone. That's like, you can't, a real medical examiner doesn't miss something like that. That's a tailor-made strangulation thing if you do these kinds of cases. And so to me, I think he's just trying to say they're out to get me. We're smart people, we're good people, and it's this misguided political attempt to appear not corrupt and not incompetent. I don't think ultimately he's even going to run. I don't know how, in light of the whole Karen Reed fiasco, the Sandra Birchmore fiasco, which will not be over by the time of the election.
Correct.
The Karen Reed stuff is going to get worse and worse. You can see other stuff already dripping out online that didn't get into the trial. You see other statements are being released by people attacking him, people saying you didn't protect us, making these really foolish statements. And I think it's just going to be smothering for him. And eventually he just taps out. But as far as what he said, that ridiculous comment he made about Birchmore, I look at it and say, what else is he going to say? It's just the real answer. What he should say is, I resign. That's what he should say, is I resign and I'm not running for re-election. But
well, and Mark, I know you can't talk about this, but how about the fact he's got a burner email account and he's emailing judges?
Yeah. Cheesy banana email. It's not brought up enough. Cheesy banana.
That's like a John Grisham book come to life.
I mean, look, but this is what happens when you have people who have been on the state payroll for like 30 or 40 or 50 years and have never had, any other job. I mean, you just become, fat and lazy in office. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, in a proverbial sense, that's what you do. And it becomes commonplace where all these other people that we were criticizing for their role in the Karen Reed case, and you say, well, how can they do this? Why do they feel emboldened? And these people all stuff money in Morissey's campaign pockets every year. And they live in the DA's office. They work there. It's one big fraternity. And you say, what do you expect? You can't expect them to police each other if something's going wrong. And I'd like to think that if somebody's running for DA, certainly in that county, the first thing they would do is say, I'm fumigating the state police component and kicking that office out. Like the way they do it, where they have these embedded state police detectives to do all their cases, it doesn't work when they're all drinking buddies and living in a fraternity house together. It's not good.
You described it like that because that's exactly what it feels like, Mark. It's just like one big club.
Yeah.
And we're not in it. We're not. The average citizen isn't in that club,
No.
Unless you hire one of their attorneys, maybe. Yeah. What about Hank Brennan's recent statement? He's made some statements, and now he doesn't want to talk. Now that it's come back to, he's getting pushback for his statements. What did you think about his statements after the trial? I'll go with Mr. Bederow since he's the legal mind, and then we'll go to the retired FBI agent.
I made some strong comments about it, both in the media in response to it, and also with Kim. I probably used inappropriate language, frankly, in expressing my view. The point remains, probably not the best professional language to use, but his statement was substantially disgraceful. I mean, it was just when you lose as a prosecutor, it's normal to express disappointment in the jury's verdict. That's okay. It's normal to say that I feel bad that I couldn't deliver what I thought was justice for John O'Keefe and his family. That's okay. And then you either sit down or say, I respect the jury's verdict. What you don't do is then say, when I came in, I looked at the federal investigation and I saw this and I saw that. And it only led me to one person. What he's saying there is Karen Reed did it, even though the jury said she didn't. And he sounds like the most pathetic, poor loser and unprofessional lawyer when he does that. And then as if he can't hose himself down, he keeps going and talking about all kinds of this intimidation as if that somehow is what led to him losing. It had nothing to do with it. It was a crappy case. There was no evidence. There was reasonable doubt. But at the same time, when he's talking about all that witness intimidation stuff, what else is he doing? He's trying to poison a prospective jury field against another person who's going to have cases coming up that I so well.
That's exactly what he was doing. He's totally continuing. Yeah.
He did it during the pretrial hearings. He tried to do it with the stunt in the trial about saying, I'm going to call him as a witness. That was never going to happen. And so his statement was just disgraceful. And ironically, if you look at Morissey's statement, it was proper.
It was better. It was better.
Well, that's what a prosecutor says. No, fair is fair. I think Michael
Morissey,
agree. But putting that aside, his statement about the verdict was not inappropriate at all. And Brennan's was just embarrassing. And the idea that taxpayers were fleeced for over $1 million plus extra money in terms of experts and a special prosecutor for this performance, this result, these tactics, and that statement is just gross.
It's disgusting.
Well, and that's the thing. It came not many days on the heels of that entire sweatshirt fiasco.
Yes.
And, and then you even have, I would say too, the x-rays. Did he withhold those from Vulture or did he just not, come forward and say, wait a minute, we want to correct, there are x-rays here.
Listen, I said it at the time and I still believe it, that the primary motivation for him not to use the rebuttal witnesses that he was going to use, is in my opinion, I'm entitled to it, was in essence self-interest more than what's in the best interest of the case. Now, I think that his interest and the case's best interest, because it was already lost in my view, but he would have done worse if he called these people. But if he called Welcher, Welcher is either going to say, I missed the x-rays, sound like an idiot, lie, he's caught lying, or he's going to say, no, you never showed me.
Right.
I think that's probably what Welcher would have done. And the reason why he didn't call Maureen Hartnett in rebuttal, which he said he was going to do, is because she would have been cross-examined about the cuts in the back. And she would have been asked, like, when you did that, you put it in a report, you gave it to the DA, you testified at 2 trials, you prepped with Lally and McLaughlin before the first one, you prepped with Brennan before the second one. He knew. I mean, again, I think the evidence that he deliberately tried to mislead the jury, certainly with respect to the cuts in the hoodie, it is obvious. I mean, I don't, and you know, sometimes people tell on themselves too. He's no shrinking violet, okay? He is a good lawyer. People get all triggered when I say that. He's good, he's experienced, but sometimes it works against you. He's meticulous, he's thorough, he's not lazy. And if you think he is, you're wrong, okay? He's a hardworking guy and wants to know everything. And the idea that he did not know about the hoodie and just had a brain fart in the middle of trial on that,
no,
come on.
And then the fact Lally and McLaughlin were sitting right there, and they sat there on the log and didn't speak up. I mean, that outraged the taxpayers that they are collecting a salary and sitting there after they took this case through in trial 1. That's inconceivable to me.
Yep. No, it's outrageous. And
that's exactly.
They paid extra. I mean, if if the taxpayers are going to pay McLaughlin and Lally to sit there and do nothing, well, that's kind of their job. I mean, that's twice that McLaughlin did it. Lally tried the first case, he did. But to bring in Brennan at close to $1 million without a conflict, and then pay Lally and McLaughlin to sit there and twirl paper clips, as a taxpayer, I'm just like, what am I doing here? And
exactly,
why
all that money wasted.
Experts who lie on their resume and, finger paint. I mean, what are we doing here?
And that's exactly why Brennan didn't bring those rebuttal. It's because he would have gotten himself in trouble, maybe in trouble with even the bar, with who knows what would have come out of that
and
cross. That's what I said the night before. I was like, I don't think he's going to bring him out because it's going to hurt him. And that's exactly what happened.
Something happened really interesting when this came up, okay? Lawyers generally, unless they have really strong reason to, don't in open court literally attack the ethics of opposing counsel, particularly in a high profile case that everyone's watching, particularly somebody like Bob Alessi, okay? He comes from a different era of the gentleman lawyer, and that's what he is. He's always been that way. And for him to say those things, there's a high threshold to get over, and he said it. And Brennan, again, not the shrinking violet, pushes back, has no problem saying things, that aren't true in court. I've seen it myself about myself. He said nothing. He literally said nothing. He just sheepishly said it was a mistake. The judge left it there. When they went to the charge conference the next day or whenever it was, he had Lally do it, so he didn't say anything. He didn't do any rebuttal. He didn't say anything. That's actually smart lawyering. He's not saying things that can be potentially used against him later. There's more to this. And by not creating a record and by saying it was a mistake and having the judge essentially accept it without any inquiry, which was also shameful given that it came in the context of a mistrial for intentional misconduct, it's over. I mean, there's no record beyond speculating to some extent like we're doing now with common sense, albeit. So his reaction to after it happened is not consistent with his behavior throughout the course of the trial. On these issues, pardon the pun, but he turtled up.
That was a good one.
It was. We're all we're
They're all
chuckling
good.
at it. He did. He turtled up. He's a turtle. He hates the turtle too. That's the thing. Like just
Well,
like you said, his
I
whole
don't think
thing. He really has an issue with the turtle.
I don't think they're going to be exchanging Christmas cards. Yeah, that's probably fair.
No Christmas cards this year.
No,
Never. Another guy that doesn't want to send Christmas cards is this former Judge Lou. I think his name Jackie Lou or you. I don't even know. Something like that.
Lou.
He was on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's got kicked off of like two TV networks for being pretty much crazy. Both NBC and then CBS had issues with him recently. And then Massachusetts, I believe, Lawyers Weekly took an op-ed from him. Did you see this? Brother Counsel did like such a great episode, going line by line, destroyed it. Brother Counsel, I just love that episode. It was amazing.
I did one with Andrew Myers too. I don't know if you saw that. We talked about this.
He did too. Yeah, you guys did too. So what does Andrew Myers think about it? What do you think about it? What do the lawyers think about this one?
I mean, it's regrettable. I mean, look, he's a retired judge, and you have to respect that. Over the prior several weeks, towards the end of his time on Twitter, his posts seemed to get irrational. They seemed to get a little bit delusional, a little bit aggressive of trying to round up evidence of what he perceived to be witness intimidation. It just sounded bizarre. You saw the things on NBC and CBS where, it would be, if they had like a 5-second delay, they'd be like, cut it. The comments he made were really regrettable. And then in this Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly thing, implying that the jury may have gotten it wrong and that they're kind of made up of true crime enthusiasts and whatnot. These are things that a retired judge shouldn't be saying. He should be saying the verdict is what it is. I presided over jury trials. I have incredible respect for juries. They do what they do, particularly because there's so much reasonable doubt here. The jury did, in my view, and I think most rational people's view, the correct thing. And if that wasn't enough for you, when you saw multiple jurors talk on TV or in the newspaper or even on streams to a man and woman, all of them really should have reaffirmed your faith in the jury system because they all made perfect sense on what their role was going in, how they evaluated things, and what they were obligated to do under the law. So I think to see a retired judge who already had a few hiccups on Twitter and, basically being blacklisted by every media station in Boston for spouting silly things, particularly from an ex-judge, for, to put it in a journal like that, which apparently every lawyer in Massachusetts would read. I mean, it sounds like the New York Law Journal, which is the Bible in New York for lawyers, and every lawyer will read it. So that's a hell of an audience to talk like that to. And when you saw the questions that were even being asked, they were so biased.
Yeah, they were biased. They were. It was like he was asking the questions. I wonder who asked the questions. That was weird.
We don't know. I don't know. I thought it was really regrettable for him, given his credentials in the past, to be like that.
Yeah, that was and when he was on CBS recently, the CBS outlet there, they like had to apologize. Like both like I guess during the show, like right after he came out, like one of the hosts was like, "We don't agree with that" or something like that.
Well, why
and then
that
they posted about it. They posted about it on Twitter.
Well, that's because somebody whispered in their ear, like, we just heard from the lawyers, like,
Yeah.
We're gonna get sued. We're gonna get sued. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
disclaimer.
Yeah, no, that's the lawyers.
That was like an immediate disclaimer. Yeah. It happened like before the show was even over. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. In the air. Well, I mean, it's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on the internet, especially Twitter, with these specifically the jurors. It's been happening to the jurors quite a bit, who I think are phenomenal. Like you said, like when I heard them speak, I was just blown away because they were so on point with, with everything they've said in their interviews, but they're being viciously attacked. I mean, some of these trolls are really insane. Some of them have, the towel with his wild conspiracy theories. But some of them are really kind of like scary, like almost violent, violent level. How come nothing's being done? How come not? How come the court, the DA, nobody's going to protect these jurors? It seems like.
Well, I mean, in the first instance, I wouldn't assume necessarily nothing's being done. I mean, you've seen nothing, but in any of these kinds of harassment situations, somebody has to complain, right? To the cops or whomever, to law enforcement, or through counsel indicating, if you don't stop this, there could be consequences. But, obviously some of the jurors, one comes to mind, obviously in particular, has been just being bashed on a daily basis. But, I wouldn't assume that these people are not taking notes and, perhaps thinking about things.
Yeah, I would not doubt it either. And I'm pretty sure that some of them are taking steps.
No, they did their civic duty. I mean, it is what it is.
Yep. Just one of the ones we saw, Meredith called this out, is that the number of times, and I'm not sure if this is actually his, there's a lot of questions whether it's actually his brother, but the question came in tonight too. There's an account on Twitter that seems to be Hank Brennan's brother. Everyone's assuming it's Hank Brennan's brother at this point, but he sent like over and over again at one of the jurors. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And if it is his brother, I would hope Hank Brennan would interfere, try to put a stop to that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, if you took all the years of experience, both in law enforcement, just in being a lawyer, some in law enforcement, some in private practice, but whether it's the people on the stream or all the other lawyers and agents, have ever seen anything where the online silliness that goes back and forth on a daily basis over having the temerity to disagree and say, look, I think there's kind of a lack of evidence, and I think this woman who's charged with murder is not guilty. No, I've certainly never seen anything like this. And I have no idea whether that is Brennan's brother or not. If it were, that would be really disturbing. Not that the brother doesn't have a right to express an opinion. I would think that other members of family, including the former prosecutor member of the family, would tell him this is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something I did not expect.
If it's him, I have no idea whether it's real.
I know, right? Right. If it's him, but looking into it, to me, it does appear to be him actually, which is, yeah, because that's my mods too. They were like, "Is that really him? Is that really him?"
I don't know.
I actually think it is actually, which is, we'll see. Here's a question, Mr. Bederow, you might want to answer or not. Brian J's Frozen Donut says, what happens if Morissey brings on Brennan to prosecute Turtle Boys cases?
I'm not touching that. I can't comment on that.
Yeah, I get it. And I'll just say that there's no indication of that, even though it could happen. But Hank Brennan said he's got a murder to defend right now. So
well, I wouldn't assume it can happen for a lot of other reasons. But beyond that, in terms of commenting on, is that good or bad, or do you embrace that or not? I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah. I know when Bredel was asked that, he said, bring it on if it happens, whatever. Like he doesn't, right? I mean, just, you're going to move forward no matter what.
Tim and I have different filters sometimes on
yeah. Well, it's funny because sometimes it's funny. That's why I have you both on, because sometimes you're cautious on some things and he's more open, and sometimes he's very cautious on some things and you're more open. So I play you guys against each other.
That's okay. I'll bust his chops after we hang up and say, "Did you really say that?" I said the exact opposite.
Next time I'm having you both on. I screwed that up that last show. I didn't realize that you wanted in on that. I should have invited you. I meant to, and I was kicking myself. But we're gonna do that next time. We're gonna have you both on together. Monica V says, "Wonder if Brennan will run." He's not running for DA. I would say 90. I think it's more likely Morissey runs for re-election than Hank Brennan. What do you think, Mark?
Who would vote for him? I mean, I get it. I get it. Certain members of the Albert family and the McCabe family. And I do think that if he ran, Brennan would like sweep Canton, or at least certain pockets of Canton. But I mean, no, I don't think he should run. I don't think he will run. And I think, the reality is this. He was so miscast in his role as prosecutor for this case because, again, he's a very skilled lawyer. He's a good lawyer. He probably could have been a very good lawyer on the defense if he had been hired initially, assuming Karen ever would. I can't imagine she'd hire someone like him, but, he would probably have been a very good defense attorney in this case. But when you wear the white hat, he is not cut out to be a prosecutor. The way he conducted this case is not how a prosecutor should, and you certainly don't hand the reins of power to all the prosecutions into a case to somebody who is willing to just obstruct, deflect, block, prevent. He should go make money in private practice, and if he can at this point, he should do that. I don't think he'll run.
Me neither. I don't think there's any chance. I think there's more of a chance that Morissey might run. And I say it's 50-50, even though there's no way in hell he should run. I think he's that wild enough and that caught up and hell bent to just win, get a win at the end because he's look at Karen Reed. He should never have retried her. He did.
People have to like you. I mean,
yeah, I know he's not going to win.
I don't think
there's no way in hell he's going to win.
It's not likable. Just what you saw in this case, and you have. I mean, again, he's a really good lawyer, but that doesn't mean you're cut out to be DA. It's a different.
No, he's not running. I'm talking about Morissey. Morissey actually has been making calls apparently about running again, and I think it's more like feelers to kind of get an idea of which hardcore loyals will still stick with him. We'll see. I think there's a good chance he doesn't run, but like I said, I think he's wild. He's like you said, he's that delusional. He's been a hack for so long. Ginny, this one I want to ask Jodie because you mentioned this earlier. Ginny has a question. Says, is it possible that the case isn't closed? Why would they even announce that? You mentioned that earlier. Can you get into that a little more about how the feds operate here? Because people have a lot of questions about that.
Well, in my career, we were prohibited from even acknowledging the existence of a case. We're not allowed to say there is or there isn't one. I used to get calls from people saying, oh, I'm a defense attorney for so-and-so. I'd like to talk to you about your case on such and such. And I'd say, I can't confirm or deny an existence of a case. You need to call the United States Attorney's Office. And I have never heard of that ever being advised of a case being closed like that. I don't necessarily believe it. I heard Michael Easter say it's more common for us to say case is completed. And that I agree with. I absolutely agree with that, where we have finished our investigation and then it's either put in a pending inactive status until the prosecutors are ready to prosecute it, or we just don't say anything at all. But I will say, if a case is closed, you can close a case at 9 in the morning and reopen it by 4:30 in the afternoon if new information comes in. So that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So, and certainly based on what I heard in the pretrial hearings, there's predication to reopen a case if it was in fact closed. So I think, everybody should sit tight. And like Michael Easter said, he knows that they were watching the trial. I imagine, I suspected as much. I think he knows a little bit more because of his previous affiliation with the case. But I suspected as much. They want to see if any of those witnesses perjure themselves, make inconsistent statements, that sort of thing. Especially Jim McCabe.
Yeah, Jen McCabe?
I think so. I mean, given the fact that, based on what we heard through her testimony, the fact that they've approached her and she wasn't truthful with them, I mean, they could have a 1001 charge ready for her at any time. And, there's a lot with her that just, it's problematic. That 5:07 a.m. phone call, a lot of people haven't forgotten about her deleting her text with Allie, and certainly all the other messages that she deleted, the butt dial she claims, the 2:27 a.m. search. I think there's a lot of problems with her, and I don't think they're done with her.
Because you found some of that stuff, didn't you?
I mean, I don't want to get into too many details about, things that I found and whatnot, or what was helpful and what's not. I saw that was discussed elsewhere at some point. Yes. The bottom line is, she made the phone call around the same time they went to go look for John O'Keefe. And it was, a long period of time where it's hard to believe that you wouldn't remember if you spoke to your sister and, why didn't they go there first? I mean, look, you could get into all kinds of things. She definitely lied to the FBI twice. Certainly implicates, 18 USC 1001. I agree. Her lawyer would probably argue it wasn't material, and, maybe they'd be right in terms of criminal charges and all that kind of things. But when someone is being portrayed as thoroughly cooperative and interested in nothing but truth, justice, the American way, and justice for John O'Keefe, then it's hard to understand why, if a different law enforcement agency comes knocking, who just happens to be not the state police, who are embedded with the DA, not the Canton police, and without your relationships with all these people, and they just said, look, we're here to look into a few things. What can you tell us? It makes no sense that in that situation you would lie about your identity, then lie about the reason you had to go in the house when they wanted to talk to you to brush your teeth, and then lie about the number of phone calls you had. And then even when coming clean, probably another reason they wouldn't prosecute her, to be honest, too, the fact that she did, come clean, if you accept that, nevertheless terminate the interview, which is her right, absolute right. And as a defense lawyer, I would never, anytime the FBI comes knocking, of course you should call a lawyer. But
get an attorney, exactly. Not
how it's being portrayed. But I will tell you what else is interesting in my experience. Having represented many people who have been either subjects, witnesses, or targets of federal investigations, when the FBI first shows up, normally they knock on the door or every now and then a phone call, but a lot of times they'll actually say, do you have a lawyer? And they'll say, get one, and leave their card and actually and give the name of the AUSA who's overlooking it, the prosecutor, and try to let we need to talk about this. And then you start the dance about whether you're going to talk to them or not. And then they, the next step is they're going to give you a grand jury subpoena, which they certainly did with her. And then you play that dance. In this situation, they just kind of rolled up on her. They definitely knew she was lying when she said, my name's Nicole. And I mean, obviously Jodie would be better than me at telling you this, but there's no way they didn't have a picture of Jen McCabe, know who she was, know exactly that she was outside her house. They knew who Nicole Albert was. And their first reaction was like, okay, her initial instinct is lie, and then they go back and she lies again. And, I mean, it's not a good look.
Well, what is a good look?
I don't know, but it's not a good look.
Not a good look. And curious if they had a Title III up. Curious about that, because, maybe that's what they anticipated, is she just slam the door in their face and then go inside and pick up the phone and call whomever and make some incriminating statements. So We'll see.
You think they had her tapped, waiting to see who she was going to call? That makes sense.
Possibly. I mean, we call that tickling the wire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
wanted to do that.
Say that again. I've heard that before.
Tickling the
Trickling or
wire.
tickling?
Tickling.
Tickling the wire.
In the wire.
It's hard for me to believe, at least at that point, that they would have had a Title III on her, only because it's so hard to get one.
You have to exhaust all the other means.
Techniques. And I
Maybe
doubt
a register at least.
Yeah, I mean, but at some point, I mean, it's highly suspicious, and that kind of encounter that she had is the kind of thing that would end up in a future affidavit seeking something. That's for sure.
Makes sense. People are asking about Devers tonight too. That was also very suspicious. Madeline Wags asked, "What about the ex-officer?" Oh, this is Wanless. I put the wrong one up. We can ask this one. We'll go back to Devers. They're also wondering about Wanless. Do you think he might come up? He really didn't come up in the Karen Reed trial. I don't even know if you know about him. He was one that apparently talked to retired Sergeant Peter Murphy from the Canton Police about removing the taillight. I mean, I guess he could be someone the FBI might be talking to too, I suppose. Mark, you know more about that. Do you think that's anything that might come up in the future or not? It didn't really come up in the trial.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're speculating. I don't know what the feds are doing or not doing, or where it goes from here. I mean, obviously, it all ties together. I mean, you go back to Barrows. I mean, that would seem to lead investigators to think that something happened with the taillight, and if that somehow brings Wanless back into it about what happened in the Sally Port with the taillight, it all ties together.
Here's the question I want to get to too, from Rescue Randy. The question for Jodie: what are your thoughts on Devers' memory claim and calling the FBI? She called the FBI on Alan Jackson, and claimed that Jackson threatened her with perjury charges. What do you think about that, Jodie?
Well, the minute I heard her say I had a false memory, I'm like, you will never testify again. No attorney will ever put you on the stand again, because that's the first thing a defense attorney is going to attack. Well, do you have a false memory today? How can we trust your memory? How can we trust you? I have never had the chief division counsel of an FBI field office take a call from someone and tell them, "Oh no, you're fine. You're fine." I mean, that just that didn't ring true to me at all. So I think, if anything, what she did is gave predication for a public corruption case against the police commissioner, with
Boston
being called in there and being told, do the right thing. I don't think she did him any favors.
Yeah, do you think there's any other way that could have meant, do the right thing for the McAlberts when he brought her into the office?
That's what I think he meant. Do the right thing. Don't cross the blue line here. Yeah. And I think she understood the message. I mean, when you're essentially a rookie cop and you get called up to the big guy's office, that doesn't happen. They don't even know who they are.
Yeah. The suspicious part of this is the meeting itself.
Just the meeting. Yeah.
It's the kind of
union rep. That's
never happened. Right. And then when he says do the right thing, and we know that she said some things that if she had stood by them without the drama, where it could have been devastating to the prosecution, right? And then, he's saying you do the right thing, and then she claims a false memory, and then she claims that, you guys were threatening me to have me prosecuted for perjury. It's kind of a scandal. I mean, it would seem obvious that with a wink and a nod, the blue wall was, alive and well in the commissioner's corner office.
Well, and any commissioner worth their salt would bench her anyways for the way she testified.
Right. Her demeanor was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Question from Matthew says, why were BA and DY so tight-lipped about John O'Keefe's socks? I'm not sure about that. Do you have either of you have any thoughts on that?
Why am I blanking on DY?
Yannetti.
David Yannetti.
Oh, yeah. David Yannetti. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going around on the internet about why weren't they collected, and could they have been tested for any sort of dog dander or hair or that sort of thing. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know about that. But it is interesting. It is interesting.
I'm looking at Bederow, and it looks like another question maybe I shouldn't ask him. I don't know.
That? Go ahead, ask it. Doesn't mean I'll answer it, but what the hell? We're having fun.
People are yelling at me right now in the chat, like, stop making Bederow uncomfortable with questions he can't answer.
The worst I can do is say I can't answer it.
It's not, you don't get uncomfortable. You just say you can't answer.
You can't make me uncomfortable. All
exactly.
I can say is I won't answer.
I know that. Exactly. People need to know that. I think it's funny.
Well, now the suspense is killing us. You have to ask.
Well, that was the question about the socks.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that for the simple reason, that, there could be other proceedings in other courts, and they're not going to be that court in front of that judge, and the legal rulings could be different, and the evidence could be different. And I think that, if people thought that people as smart and strategic as Bob and Dave were being sheepish about it, then, there's a reason for it. And, all things in due time, I suppose.
We just got to wait. Dog Lover has a question. This has been coming up a lot tonight. Would they be allowed to test other people, like if Proctor is the father? People keep asking if Proctor is the father of Sandra's kid. There's no indication of that, but it's an interesting rumor that's going around. But just beyond Proctor, could they start looking at the DNA and try to even go into some of those databases and 23andMe and all that? Could they start doing that?
It's tricky. I mean, even somebody as awful as Michael Proctor has constitutional rights, and obviously trying to get someone's DNA taken through a buccal swab or whatever format implicates the Fourth Amendment, and there can be litigation about it. And you can't just go around demanding people's DNA. I mean, you can get it other ways if they have no expectation of privacy. Like the perp who smokes a cigarette and throws it, and the minute he leaves, they grab it, bag it, that kind of thing. But no, they can't just go around and do what's called the DNA dragnet of anyone to establish paternity. I mean, if they had specified cause against any particular individual, then there might be a basis to seek DNA. But there's all kinds of things. You saw this too. A lot of people online were saying, why didn't they test Brian and Colin Albert's DNA for the blood on John O'Keefe? And it sounds like, yeah. But then if you listen to all the evidence, there was an insufficient concentration to even get any match. And at that point, a court isn't going to allow an intrusion into someone's, genetic material, which is the, most intrusive of all searches, if there's no reasonable basis that will even yield any evidence. It's DNA is complicated, and getting it's not that simple.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think people forget there wasn't enough DNA evidence there to test it against other people for John O'Keefe. That's the big thing. I'm just reading some of the chats right now, thinking of a couple of questions. You know what? We still have questions about Jodie tonight. I know people come in halfway through the chat. Jodie, do you just want to tell people who you are again, so they?
Sure. I'm a retired special agent with the FBI. I worked for 22 years with the FBI. Excellent. And I have a podcast, Caught in My Web. It's a true crime podcast on Patreon.
And you've written a book too, a fiction book. We put your website up. It's pinned in the chat too. If people want to look up Jodie, you can find out all about her book. It's a good fictional book. Check it out.
Doing well. It's doing well. I'm very, very pleased with it. Very pleased.
What's it called?
The Bald-Faced Deception. So it's a psychological suspense, and a lot of people are liking it. So that's what every author dreams of. So that's good. That's good.
Phenomenal. Did you ever think you would write a book? How long did this take you?
Oh, I've always wanted to write a book. My background's in journalism, so that was always my retirement plan. And so when I retired, and 2 weeks later, the country went into lockdown, my kids were upstairs on their laptops doing 8th grade remotely, and I was downstairs on my laptop writing a book. Awesome. So that's how it worked out.
That's great. Congratulations. Dream come true.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. And another book's in the works right now. So hope to publish some more.
It's going to be fiction, nonfiction?
Fiction. Although I do get a lot of requests. Would you write, a true crime on this case, or would you cover this case? Yeah. Oh, I would love to be Karen's ghostwriter. She could call me. I'd love to write her book. Yeah, I think she's got a lot to say. And she, she's at CAA. That deals with CAA, and my book was at CAA for a while, under consideration. So that is a major entertainment agency.
Oh yeah, it's the top one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Hollywood. That's Hollywood. Tony Sheffer says, "What's the status of the Bederow letters? Is there any updates that we haven't heard about?"
There's a court appearance July 7th where topics that are outstanding, may be addressed, and certainly if not that day, soon thereafter. I think, a lot of the troll types and the haters or whatever don't understand the purpose of. I don't like that term. They're discovery demands in the form of a letter. Which is very common in New York, by the way. Now, admittedly, I'm not a Massachusetts culture guy in terms of lawyer, but it is very common to build a paper trail of making demands, and if not complied with, and then followed up by a formal demand in a motion, which now the court has to get involved. If it's not followed up, that there can be consequences. So, I wouldn't say what are the status of the letters. There are all kinds of discovery demands therein, which if the issues have not been addressed, they will be addressed soon.
We recently had Juna Perkins on the show. I mentioned her earlier. She had a couple of the statements that I thought were interesting. One of them is that she said she would consider it and likely to reassign anyone that was in the Proctor text chain messages. She's also put a video out that she's asking for Michael Morissey to resign from office. That all seems reasonable. I'm guessing you both agree with all of that?
Yeah. I've said that 100 times. I think Morissey should have resigned yesterday, and if not yesterday, the day before that, and if not then, a month before that. Yes. No, I think for the simple reason, a lot of people think he's corrupt, obviously. A lot of people think he's incompetent. A lot of people think he's incompetent and corrupt. But, either way, does anybody have any confidence in what he's doing? There's a crisis in the public's confidence in the Norfolk County criminal justice system, and that all starts with him. So, there's a million reasons why he should go. He's dragging the office down. One has to believe the morale in that office must be atrocious for many different reasons. And yeah, of course he should resign.
Jodie, you feel the same way, I'm guessing?
Absolutely. In fact, I almost think it's a little bit weak of the Massachusetts State Police Colonel not to reprimand Buchanan for how he testified. I thought that was just atrocious. And those other troopers that were on those text chains, how can any of them go out and interface with any female subject or victim or witness and not set the Massachusetts State Police up for a potential lawsuit down the line, because you just can't trust how these guys are going to treat females.
Definitely. When you use language like that, and then you just, no big deal. It's no big deal that my underling uses language like that. Another thing that she said that it was a little more controversial in our chat was she feels like nobody will ever be charged for the death of John O'Keefe, and she explained it due to the fact that if the DA were ever to, or the state police were ever to arrest somebody, their first excuse is going to be that, well, Karen Reed did it. So there's no way that they'll ever get a conviction for this. And that's why Michael Morissey deserves to go the most, because he screwed up. He should have never prosecuted Karen Reed for this if he didn't have the evidence to prove that she did it, because now it's going to let whoever really did it get away with it, because they're always going to have the Karen Reed defense.
But that was why they prosecuted Karen, was so the real person could get away with it. So they could say, well, we tried.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who I said this to. It was a week or two ago. This came up, and I said the irony is if anybody ever were to be charged with any crimes related to the death of John O'Keefe, and which I don't believe they will, but if they were, the number one defense will be a third party culprit defense, somebody named Karen Reed. You ever heard of her? And that will be an acquittal. And if I were, I mean, obviously I would have a conflict and wouldn't do that. But I mean, putting that aside, I mean, if somebody hired me and I had no relationship or involvement in this case, my defense would be not necessarily that she did it, but look at all that evidence and, they believed it. And there's all these troubling facts and this, and she admitted it, which I don't believe, what I'm talking about. And there would be an acquittal because there would be built-in reasonable doubt because of what Morissey, the DA's office, and the state police did in the case against Karen.
The only way I think that you would ever possibly see any kind of charge, but I agree with Mark, is if there was some other trouble that someone like Higgins or somebody got into and they got a hammer over them and then they needed cooperation credit or needed to try to strike a deal, then they might flip on somebody and give some information. But even then, their credibility is so shot because of everything they've already testified to.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. I don't think we'll ever see anything related to John O'Keefe's death. If anything, we may see some public corruption charges, but not related to, what happened to him.
Right.
So unfair.
Well, it really is. It makes me sick, the fact that he's a cop and these cops didn't do an investigation. And, that's one thing I would say, because, it really, when his friends testified and Brennan was in the documentary, you can clearly see these guys loved him like a brother. They really did. And, they were so focused on, Karen did this, and you just kind of want to sit down with them and you just kind of want to say, tell me what kind of cop John was. And of course they'd say he was a great cop. He cared about people. He was a public servant. He wanted to do good things. He wanted to keep people safe. And my understanding is he worked sex crimes and crimes against children, child exploitation for a while. And, I would kind of say to him, well, he probably would look at phone records and try to establish when the perpetrator made contact with a minor. And those phone records would matter. Those calls would matter because they're probative. So when you see these calls between Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, and they're denying they ever happened, or you're seeing these calls from Jen McCabe at 5:07 a.m. and she's denying, oh no, that I didn't talk to anyone there. Look at those and realize you're being lied to, because John O'Keefe would have said those are real records and those phone records matter. And it's just a shame. It's just a shame that more wasn't done, and that nobody within Massachusetts State Police said this isn't right. This isn't right. And the prosecutor's office too. I keep going back to the fact that there's no cameras from a neighborhood canvas. Well, their own witnesses were contradicting each other. You had all the people in the Ford F-150 saying the Jeep was out in front of the mailbox, and then you had all the people in the house saying, you have all the people in the house saying the Jeep was by the mailbox, and all the people in the Ford F-150 saying the Jeep wasn't there. Well, they hadn't known us to figure out where was the Jeep.
Yeah.
Somebody's lying here.
And I think it's important to emphasize what Jodie just said. The real blame here, obviously the state police, it's the DA. Again, one gets the impression the way this investigation was handled, even though the DA was involved in the early stages, which, that could lead to problems civilly down the line if that's ever an issue. But that's not the point of what I'm about to say now, because they were helping investigate. The bottom line is you get the impression from the way the evidence came out and all the police reports that were released that the state police were running the investigation on their own with little to no guidance or instruction from the DA's office. And again, maybe it's cultural. Where I come from, you know, the NYPD has the best detectives in the world, and you watch the shows on Netflix, New York Homicide. I mean, I know some of these guys. I mean, they're just incredible. But what do when they need a search warrant? The DA writes it, and they go over it together. They do it. When they're doing any investigative work, they're in a serious case, constant discussion with the DA. The DA is telling them, do this. Have we done this? Have we done that? And does anybody really get the impression that back in January, February, March of 2022, that Adam Lally was telling Tully and his merry band of incompetence what they should be doing? Or have we done this? Like, for example, I mean, Jodie keeps saying neighborhood canvas. I mean, Mike, you've heard me bitch and moan about this for 2 years, and, you know, about the very definition of what a canvas is. How in the hell nobody ever knocked on doors and just said, do you see anything? Do you have cameras? The neighbors, I mean, remember, their theory of the case eventually settled on it's starting in front of the neighbor's house, and the vehicle careening, ending up by the flagpole, which is like right on the boundary of the neighbor's house. How do you not go over there and find out, or anyone across the street, up and down for several streets out? It's insane. And they never did it. They apparently never were asked.
They never even talked to Lucky. They never even talked to Lucky.
Never
Turtle Boy talked to Lucky, and the feds.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Mike, is that you look at all the things they didn't do. They didn't secure the scene. They didn't search the house. They didn't do a neighborhood canvas. They didn't talk to Lucky. They didn't document things. They didn't get chains of custody. But boy, Michael Proctor went and got that Sallyport video in February 2022, didn't he? And then he went back in June 2023. That tells you something. That tells you right there.
And stuffed it in his pocket. I mean, you're led to believe that he got the video and stuffed it in his pocket and didn't feel compelled to say maybe the DA should look at this video. Again, if you believe that, I'm not sure I do. But I mean, again, the problem with these people is they may be corrupt. They definitely are incompetent, and they may be corrupt and incompetent. And that's not a winning combination for public confidence in what they're doing. And, you know, there comes a point where you throw the bums out, and at least in Norfolk County, it's probably time now to do that.
Well, and that colonel with the Massachusetts State Police, I just watched a hearing a couple of weeks ago in the Brian Walsh case, and Fanning was up on the stand, and he was testifying there about how he didn't document anything either. And I'm like, that colonel needs to make it a rule now. Reports are done in 5 days, gentlemen, and, you know, women, and whoever your troopers are. 5 days or you're out. We can't have this not documenting things. In the FBI, if you don't document something, it never happened.
Another funny thing I've said before, there's an expression in the NYPD. They use DD5s. That's the report. And every detective knows the whole adage that I'm sure is the same with 302s in the FBI. You know, if it's not in a 5, it didn't happen.
Right.
And I mean, and the other thing, it's interesting, and I mean, obviously the FBI, you would know this, FBI reports, 302 reports are incredibly detailed. I mean, if somebody goes to the bathroom, somebody writes it down in their 302s, and they're single spaced, often multiple pages, and it's not to like hide bad evidence. It's to create a written record of what happened, and the chips fall where they fall from an evidentiary standpoint. And also, by not writing things down, you do that so that if you ever leave the case or somebody else gets involved, there's a record, they have it.
Right.
These guys in the state police don't do it. It should be a red flag. I mean, it's so incompetent. It's so outrageous. What if they die in a car accident?
Right, exactly.
I mean, I don't want to think
or get Alzheimer's,
somewhere, whatever.
The information shouldn't rest with one individual, and if they become incapacitated or unavailable, it's gone. And if that's what's happening in the state police, then again, they've got real problems. I mean, there's no excuse for that investigatively.
None. Unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with in the Mass State Police. You mentioned the family and the friends.
Now that Kohberger's settled, that'll be my next trial, most likely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing
Well,
that.
I mean, it was going to overlap with Kohberger, but now if Kohberger's not going to trial, then yeah, I may be covering Brian Walsh.
That should be it. Hopefully that's a easy one. I hope so.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I
you got
know
the same players doing the investigation.
I know.
And
That's not what this is. That's why this needs to get fixed because you mentioned earlier the family and friends. Do you think they'll ever come around? Do you think they'll ever ask those kind of questions that you have tonight? Like, why did they look at the evidence? The investigators, why did they ask for the phones? Why didn't they follow the digital evidence? Why didn't they do any of these things, the search warrants? Do you think the family and friends will ever get there?
I hope I have more optimism for the friends getting there. I really do. I think the family right now, I think with the mother, I think she might think that getting mad at the police when her son was a cop, that might be a conflict. But I also think the family's suing Karen civilly. So I think they're thinking, she did it. They're thinking with that mindset. Whereas I do think some of John's friends, they can't be that blinded. They have to know that this just, Brian Albert was in the same department as John O'Keefe, the same agency. I mean, I've been called out on holidays. I've been called out in near tornado conditions to do protection at funerals for fallen law enforcement officers, to secure scenes, to block off roads when we've had active shooters. I mean, when there's a cop down or there's a call out, you go. It doesn't matter. And so the fact that I don't care if it was a blizzard, they could have called the FBI and there would have been FBI agents that would have come out and held that scene for them.
Yep.
It just makes no sense to me at all.
The family's not suing Brian Albert.
Well, maybe
they never invited people that were drunk for an after party to their house, right? John would be alive either way, no matter if you think Karen did it or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think too, people need to talk about the drunk driving by Brian Albert, Brian Higgins. Exactly. There were a lot of people drunk driving that night.
Exactly. And the fact that you invite people over that are drunk to your house. I mean, after the bar closes, my mom always told me, nothing good happens after midnight,
Yeah.
I'm surprised the family doesn't have a little blame to them, at least, I just wonder if they'll ever smarten up about it. Here's a question for both of you. Kathleen Slaw says, is there any way the FBI can get BA, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Brian Higgins information from their phones from the cloud? The FBI can get everything, right? If they
get a search warrant for it.
It also depends what's there. I mean,
what's
again,
there, exactly. We deleted things.
There's been 2.5 years of this. You're looking for records from 2022. They're officially under no suspicion by, as far as we know, and haven't been for some time. Who knows what's even left? I mean, you can delete cloud stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They may have already gotten some of that stuff too. We don't know what's in that.
I think they probably did early on. Because, I mean, when you think about the fact that they hired ARCA, that was because they weren't convinced John O'Keefe was hit by a car. So if there is this cover up, if he's not hit by a car and that taillight wasn't broken and placed in the yard from a collision, who placed it there and why would they do that? They're covering for someone else. That's where the FBI was going with this. So they had to look at the homeowner. That would be your number one. He had even if, let's just say there wasn't a fight, even let's say John O'Keefe, he's drunk, he goes to the garage door instead of the side door, he opens it, the dog's in there because they have a whole house full of company. He gets jumped by the dog, he falls back, he hits his head. They still have potential civil liability. They may try to cover that up. So I think, the FBI is going to look at that, or they probably did look at that.
Yeah, the civil liability too, I think, is huge. I think that's another reason why they would want to cover up, no matter what happened there.
People cover up for financial reasons.
That's right.
And cover up to protect their kids.
Let's jumping back into Sandra. How damaging could it be in the case against Farrell that Sandra's death was ruled suicide and that he's not the father?
The fact that he believed he was the father, he would still have a motivation. And based on the communications and those emails and the text messages and the fact that he was still casing out the apartment and everything, he's still got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the reason he was there that night. I mean, that's the reason. Yeah.
Look, she's on the phone and seen alive, and he shows up a few minutes later, and she's never heard from again. All the other stuff. If he perceived that he was the father and angry about it, the motive is the motive. Just because turns out, this was all for nothing on top of being horrific to begin with. He's not going to benefit from that. It's certainly interesting, I guess, when you look at the case and the whole thing about the prior ruling on her death. I mean, the medical evidence is going to control, and if her hyoid bone is damaged, a competent medical examiner is going to talk to you what that means, how that happens, when that would happen. I mean, it's obviously an issue they'd have to deal with. I mean, if Farwell were to try the case, which I can't imagine that he would, obviously he would try to pounce upon both of those. He would try to argue I had no motive because he wasn't the father and it was a suicide. But it's not going to stop them from. And the other thing is this: you don't know how long the FBI and U.S. attorney has known about the paternity in this case. Feds have a much higher standard of bringing charges than state prosecutors, and they generally work on a standard of, will this hold up? Their conviction rate is much higher than in state court generally anyway. Some of that's rules of evidence and jury pools and all that, but they have a much higher standard. I mean, like when you're in Norfolk County, the standard appears to be, she might have done it, and what the hell? Let's just arrest her and try her again and again until something happens. With Birchmore, that's a hell of a step the feds took, knowing it had been ruled a suicide, knowing all this other stuff, and they did it. They had to get creative in the charging. I mean, that's the more interesting thing to me is, you can't just charge murder in federal court for the hell of it. It's got to be in furtherance of something, or jurisdiction is not. Murder is generally not a federally jurisdiction type of crime. So they have her, though it's like a murder of a witness, which is, and that's probably what the focus would be in a defense of him, is that, what's the evidence that she was a witness against him in something. That's a broadly defined thing, by the way. I mean, it's, you look at like the obstruction of justice statutes too. It's broadly defined, but they don't bring these charges and they're not afraid of it just because who the father is and the local medical examiner ruled it a suicide.
They have what they need.
Well, and I also think if he is cooperating, he could also be cooperating against the other police officers who may have had predation against other minor juveniles in that police explorers club.
Definitely.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot of the people looking at this believe there's a lot more to this, like Mizzy, and she's had a lot of contact with the family and even some of the other kids that were around this. So,
I don't believe Sandra was the only one. I do not
no
believe
doubt about it. Yeah, no way was she the only one. Sylvia's daughter says, Jodie, what do you think Higgins was doing moving the cars that morning in the snowstorm?
So I have my theories on Higgins. I think he was parked at the police officer's house where they got the red Solos cups. That's where I think he was.
Yes, my friend Kelleher.
Here's why I think that. Because I think he clearly was planning to tell John O'Keefe, hey, let me tell you what your girlfriend's been up to the past few weeks. I think that was why he wanted John O'Keefe to come to that house. And so I think he parked over there thinking they'll pull up, they won't see my Jeep, they'll come in. And I think Jen McCabe originally was trying to lure Karen away so that the guys could be alone at the house and a little chit chat could happen.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
I think he parked over there. Now, depending on what you think about the phone, I've thought somewhat that perhaps the phone, I don't necessarily think the phone was with John O'Keefe the entire time. Just because the phone's on the lawn, I don't think that was with John O'Keefe, if the phone was on the lawn, or was the phone with John in the house. I think originally my thought was somebody walked that phone to get it out of the house. The minute Kieran takes off, I thought, get the phone out of the house to make it look like he was never in here. And I thought, well, if Higgins is parked over there across the street, he'd walk right out by the flagpole, toss it, go hop in his Jeep, and then he drives by, goes by the library, they get rid of that, and then he's disposing of whatever they're cleaning up the basement or the garage with. That was kind of my original thought. And then he went back to Canton PD to monitor what's going on in the command post, maybe to get a burner phone. I have a lot of questions about what phone was he on when he was walking out of that police station. Was it his personal phone? Was it his bureau or his ATF phone? Or was it a burner phone? Now, when you're a federal agent, you have an app on your phone that tracks your GPS because they want to be able to track us in case we're ever in any danger. I want to know, did the FBI get those phone records to know where he went? Because if you look at his testimony, he was pretty insistent. Well, I knew it was going to be a quick night. They didn't have Jameson and ginger, they're beer drinkers here. So I left 12:31, but closer to 12:30, he was real insistent about the 12:30. And so I thought, well, if you're leaving at 12:30, the police station is 5 minutes down the road. Where were you for that hour? You were somewhere. You don't just hang out around here. You were doing something. So I think that geolocation data for that hour is really, really crucial. I really do think so. And what did he get out of that other car that he moved into his personal Jeep? What was that in the duffel bag? I'm curious about that.
Questions. I mean, definitely. I want to know who he was calling that night too.
Who is he calling? Exactly. Who's he calling? And, there's a way they can test to see what phones commingled with each other at what times. Did his phone commingle with other phones of the other people at 1:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning? They're going to be able to tell that.
You think the feds have all that information?
Oh, absolutely they do. Absolutely they do.
Is that why you feel like that?
To get that, they would at least attempt. Yeah. That would be. I would attempt to do that. And I got to think, if Michael Easter was consulting on this, they've got as much as the feds can get, as many techniques as they can get, they will utilize, because he is sharp as a tack. I'm very impressed by him. Yes. And I think if anything, that should give people confidence.
Yeah.
In whatever investigation is either ongoing related to the DA's office or whatever investigation was done parallel, I think there's a lot more that we don't know.
It sounds like you're almost confident that maybe some arrests, maybe not so much as John O'Keefe's killers, but maybe some of the corruption around
I don't give up on the FBI.
Yeah.
I've seen, I had cases that, they kind of, cases can go stagnant for a little while and then something can, boom, change things. Exactly. And you got to remember, there are, I watched Brian Higgins when he testified. And to me, I think he's crackable. I really do.
This is a question that everyone's asking tonight, because especially knowing that when the McAlberts came out with their statement,
and right after John,
he wasn't in it. What do you think? Do you think that he could flip?
When I saw him testify, and he got so choked up when he was talking about the nephew, to me, I don't know if he's still with the ATF or not. I've heard rumors he's not. I've heard his homes are for sale. I kind of think if they could get a hammer on him and say, look, these kids have been through it. You could do something. You could at least do something so that, that little boy and that niece can find out what happened to their uncle. I do think, he might cave. I mean, the family is not going to go out on a limb for him. He's kind of on his own little island. And especially if let's say it was just the dog knocking him over. I mean, John had a lot to drink that night. Or if it's Colin, or if it's Brian Albert, or, or the dog started to attack and John, let's say, kicked it or something. And then, one of the family members jumped in and things got out of hand. If he didn't really do anything, he might flip. He might cooperate. And, the first one to the table gets the best deal. That's the way it goes. The first one to the table gets the best deal.
What do you think about the story? If it ended that way, if we found out that one of them flipped and they had federal charges, would be, I just hope it does happen. We've been going for almost 2 hours now. I asked you, I guess, your final thoughts. I'll go to Mark Bederow since he hasn't spoken in a little bit. Mark, or anything else that we haven't talked about? I know July 7th is Turtle Boy's Aiden Carney's next court case, his next hearing. A lot of people plan to be there at 2 p.m., and you'll be there as well. So I hope people go there July 7th at 2 p.m. Attorney Bederow, what do you have for us? Final thoughts or anything that we haven't talked about today?
Well, I noticed a lot of people are saying that on Saturday that Alan will be on Aiden's show, which is spectacular get, obviously. And
is that happening? Is that booked?
That's what it says, and that's what my guy tells me. So that's what's happening.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so, I'm looking forward to that. That's Saturday night. Must be you got to be there for that.
I'm saying
Jackson with Aiden is going to be the best friggin' interview.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I'll be watching like everyone else, definitely, for a lot of reasons. But to tie it all together, there's no problem between Aiden and Karen, or what's happening with Karen's post-trial legal strategies or media relations. And despite people saying that, there are a lot of agitators who try to do that. And I'm talking about this now because last night, Coffindaffer, we started with her, we have to finish with her. She put on, some ridiculous tweet mocking him about how he's been abandoned and, will he turn on her and this and that. And sometimes I try not to respond to this stuff, but sometimes I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
And basically, I can't respond to her directly because, I'm blocked. She doesn't like those.
Blocked you too. I can't believe she blocked you. That is funny. I expect you to block, but not Bederow.
Somebody else who puts it up gets the retweet or whatever you call it.
And she blocked you. That is so funny. How do you get blocked by Mark Bederow? Come on. How do you block him? How do you block him, Coffindaffer? I'm sorry.
Julie Grant blocks me because time I said I thought she was wrong on a legal issue. Whatever. The point is, and I said, like this idiot Coffindaffer just continues to just make things up, try to foment dissent, grief grift and needle and talk about things that just don't apply without any basis to do so. And what I had said last night was, there's nothing wrong, with this situation between these two people, and you're making drama like a child when you're, supposed
they're
to be
hoping for it. They want it. Yeah.
And you're wrong. And she's a clown and she should be ignored. And it pleases me that a day later after she said this, the announcement is that Alan is going on Aiden's show Saturday night, which I'm sure will be.
Do they ever get tired of being wrong? Do they ever get tired of it? I mean, this happens a lot where the next day, exactly what they said, the opposite happens every time.
They live on Twitter. And again, it's what she does. It's the only stock and trade she has, needling on Twitter and trying to sound like an intelligent expert. And she's not. But so, yeah, that's my only final thought.
I don't see how she didn't see it coming, too, because I knew that was coming. Like, even without you saying it and without them even saying it, I'm like, I've been saying that for a while. The best
Mhm.
interview is going to be Jackson with Aiden.
Mhm.
It's coming, and it
Yeah,
there it is.
of course.
I knew that was coming. I just knew it. I knew that was
Sure.
going to happen.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
that's it. I just find that funny that a day
it
later
is.
that happened.
It's hilarious. It's a wrong again, Coffee. She just like she was wrong about John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. You know that Karen Reed is going to be convicted. All this crap that she's throwing against the wall. She's been wrong so many times this year. Jodie, do you have any final thoughts tonight? Anything that you didn't get to share or you want to bring up? And also make sure you promote your Patreon and your book and everything else, where you're at on X. Well, I want to make sure everyone follows you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mike. I truly appreciate it. My Patreon true crime podcast, 5 days a week on Patreon, Caught in My Web. My book is The Bald-Faced Deception. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, anywhere major distributors of books. And, I really just hope that the people of Norfolk County get some relief from just the corruption within their district attorney's office, within their law enforcement. You got to vote these people out. That's number one. Number two, you got to stay on top of your police departments, and you really, really have to, write your letters to your editor, go to the commission boards and stay on top of it, because this is systemic. These are systemic problems within these agencies. It's not just one bad apple or a one-off situation. These are really, really corrupt departments from the top on down. And the fact that there's these 3 national murder cases in this one county, you've got Karen Reed, Sandra Birchmore, and Brian Walsh, all have had national attention. And the fact that these officers are in them all, it's just, I really feel for the taxpayers there. I really, really do.
Wait, something's done, and I agree. People need to get active. They need to vote. They need to write letters and do it all.
Right.
I want to thank you so much, Attorney Mark Bederow. Again, thank you for being here. And Jodie, Jodene Weber on Twitter and X and everywhere else, retired FBI agent. Thank you so much for you both being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mike, and nice to meet you, Mark.
Yeah, I was just going to say, nice meeting you finally.
Yes.
I love it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank Jodie and Mark for being here. That was amazing. I'm glad to bring them together. I love that. I love when we bring like top people together. It's so much fun. That was great. I want to thank everyone who's been watching. I want to thank our moderators, our mod team. We have the best mods in the business. There's Sarah right there, Sarah and Shock and Horror. She's here. Amazing show, Mike. Thank you, Sarah. She's one of our great moderators here. I also want to thank Stephanie. I saw her here earlier tonight. MJ as well. I want to thank MJ, Jeno, and Scott McGinnis. That's our mod team. Make sure you thank the mods on the way out. Thank you, Attorney Mark Bederow. And thank you for the retired FBI agent, Jodie, tonight. Jodie Weber. She's amazing. Make sure you follow her on X and Twitter and her Patreon, all those other places. We have it pinned in the chat right now, her website. Definitely go check her out. If you want to support her book as well, the book of fiction, but it does bring awareness, like she said, to victims of 9/11. Specifically the first responders. Definitely they need more support. I love that. I love that she turned a book of fiction into something that raises awareness. I like that. That's a great idea. Just gonna read a couple super chats tonight. Larissa Harris at 1999. And she said, Lawyering 101, a good attorney should know the importance of likability and trust of the jury. He browbeat, verbally assaulted witnesses and experts. Hank is a dangerous man outside of court to me. He's dirty, zero integrity. I agree. He definitely did turn off the jury. It's funny how we sat here every night listening to these attorneys come on the show, like Attorney Bederow and Steinbeck, and Nan and all these other attorneys, and they kept telling us that this guy is turning off the jury. He's browbeating witnesses. The jury is seeing it. And then the jury is now speaking and they're saying just that. So it's just amazing to see the experts were correct. The experts were correct that were on all these shows, and that's why they're so valuable. And I'm so thankful that we could air a lot of them, and especially Bederow holding our hands every night. I know so many of you, even the Reed family, when I talked to them, they said, just like you all, we were watching Bederow every night, and it just made us feel better. Notorious KPG sent 1999 said, why did Proctor say the only thing he'd change is look at other cars if the broken taillight was the one solid piece of evidence that proved Karen Reed's guilt? Why the need to look at other cars if hers really was already smashed? Maybe look in the house. That's maybe he just said that because he didn't want to have to say I should have looked in the house, right? I mean, good observation. Yeah, why did he say look at other cars? Like maybe look at other people is really what he should have said, and the people in the house. That's what he should have done. Thank you for the super chat, Notorious KPG. Thank you so much. I also have some new members tonight. Teresa Nick. She's been a member for 1 month. She says, greetings from Ireland. Thank you so much, Teresa from Ireland. Are you from County Cork? That's where my people are from. Sonia, member for 10 months, said, Jen, the ice cream truck announcer. Thank you so much, Sonia, for being a member for 10 months. That's awesome. Rescue Randy. Love some of the handle. Rescue Randy, the crash test dummy, said $5 tonight. Says Alan Jackson on Aiden Saturday at 9 p.m. First interview. Well, I got to say, it's actually I'd say the second, because Howie Carr did get Alan Jackson on, but it's going to be the first, like, YouTube. It's going to be the first YouTube, which is going to be awesome. That's good. I'm so looking forward to that Saturday night. We'll all be there. It's going to be. I want to know right now in the chat how many people you think Aiden's going to bring in with Alan Jackson on Saturday night. An average show. Remember when Aiden used to get excited and say, "I'm going to get my goal is to get 10,000 live viewers on an episode of mine." Now he does that on average. That's like an average night. It's like 10,000 live. I think he's going to get like 50. I think he's going to get like 50,000. You watch. I want to know what you think. How many actual live listeners? Like tonight, right now, we have 4,500 on YouTube right now. I think he's going to get like 50. I think he's going to get like 50,000 that night. I'm interested to see how big it gets. I am really looking forward to that. Donnie B sent $2 and said, did the 34 Fairview owners ever offer home for testing? I don't know. I mean, they definitely offered something because Nick Rocco, and we also knew there was some video that Judge Bev didn't allow in, but Nick Rocco has been posting videos from inside the house. There was a video that was popped up this week from inside the house with Alan Jackson. Go on Nick Rocco's Twitter. He's got a brand new Twitter. He's been posting the videos. I don't know if they did testing, but they definitely did like a walk around, and they definitely did some video. And Alan Jackson showed it. Was in the video showing the people around the house. I think the video team. There's also some pictures on Nick Rocco's Twitter of the bulkhead area with the you see the leaves and the stairs. So I don't know if they offered it for testing, but they definitely allowed the defense team in there to take some video and pictures. So who knows what else we don't know about that. Great question, Donnie B. Stock Market Caddy said $5 and said, is it too late to luminol the basement? Did anyone do that? I don't know if it was done. I don't know. I have no idea. That's another question. Maybe we need to ask Nick Rocco. See what Nick Rocco can tell us. I have no idea if that was done. And I don't know if it's too late for evidence. I mean, I mean, murder is a case that will always be open, right? So I imagine it's not too late, but I mean, it's the longer it goes, the worse it gets, right? Obviously. So I suppose it's never really too late in a murder case. Hope sent $10 and said, "Love this panel. In my honest opinion, Colin and Higgins did it, and Chloe jumped in. Free Turtle Boy." Well, I don't know who did it or what happened, but I will say free Turtle Boy. That's the big one for me. Thank you so much, Hope, for giving the donation tonight. I appreciate it. Donnie B sent $5 and said, if there were no second trial, Canton PD and Morissey might have had a dimmer spotlight on them. Now, so many more know and are protesting the actions. I know this was actually the wrong thing for them in the long run. They should have just said, you know what, we're not going to do a retrial. That they should definitely have not done the retrial, because look how it turned out for them. The worst possible thing for them. Absolutely agree 100%, Donnie, that not as many people would have known. And I see this other comment from you as well. I think they're going to try a lot of crap with Turtle Boy. They do. They definitely are. Thank God that Turtle Boy has great attorneys, just like Karen Reed does. Got Mark Bederow and Tim Bradle. I'm looking forward to seeing July 7th and everything else in court with Bederow and Bradle. It's like must-see TV. And you know what else I like is the community. Someone said 40,000 listeners for Turtle Boy. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be 40, maybe 50. Yeah, someone said 55. I mean, seriously, that's going to be the biggest Turtle Boy show ever Saturday night. Saturday nights, I always feel like are the biggest shows, usually Saturday, sometimes Tuesday, but I feel like Saturday night with Jackson, this is it. This is going to be the peak Turtle Boy. I am looking forward to that. Saturday night. Oh, boy. This is what we need. I've been waiting for this. And I got to say, I was getting a little aggravated. I was getting a little aggravated because I wanted to see them on there. I want to see them on my show too, but it's not really about me. And really, I wanted to see them on Turtle Boy #1 and a lot of the other shows that raise money too. I'd like to see that happen, but just do Turtle Boy just to see Jackson as a fan. That's what I want to see. Yeah, microdots. Maybe we should ask microdots. Microdots might know a thing or two about if there was any testing. I gotta reach out to microdots. Thank you, Zoe B, who just sent $9.99, said excellent show tonight. That's all I wanted to say. Aw, thank you. Yeah, they were great guests, weren't they? And they jived well, like they were a good fit for each other. It was just tonight was seamless. It was just an easy show. Bederow and Jodene, or Jodie for short. She's phenomenal. I knew she was going to be good, but there were a few times when she went through the evidence, I was like, oh, she is business. She knows this case. It was great to have her on here too. That's my second FBI agent. That's the first female FBI agent. The first FBI agent I ever had was Rob D'Amico, who's oftentimes you see him on network television. He's great too. Both of the FBI agents, retired FBI agents I've had on the show, phenomenal. Unlike Coffindaffer. So that's the thing. When we think of retired FBI agents, folks, we don't just think Coffindaffer. Think Jodie. Think about Rob D'Amico. Think about Michael Easter. The three of them are phenomenal. All three of them. Like, I would hire them for any type of job. I would, like, not that they want to watch. They're not going to want to watch my dogs, but I don't hire anyone to watch my dogs unless they're like on this level, because my dogs mean everything to me. Or like the grandchild. I would entrust those people. All three of them. That's how good they are. Phenomenal. You can trust them. So when we think of FBI agents, let's not, because I noticed that when I said retired FBI agent, there's a picture of a woman. Everyone thought it was Coffindaffer. They were all like, "You have a Coffindaffer? What are you, crazy?" It's like, no, it's not Coffindaffer. Read the fine print. Her name's Jodie Weber. Coffindaffer's not the only retired FBI agent. She's just the worst one. And that's why she gets all the views, because her views are terrible. We all need to start following Jodie. She's phenomenal. Yeah, that was a highlight tonight. It's funny. They're all watching. Every single one of them is watching that special on Saturday night. Everybody's going to be watching. Spanky Brennan's going to be watching it. Morissey, I guarantee Morissey's watching it Saturday night. Hank Brennan's not missing it. That's the thing. Sometimes I wonder how many of the people watching these shows, our shows, are like the Mass State Police, the DAA, all those people we criticize. I wonder how many of them are watching. A lot of them, especially Turtle Boy on Saturday night with Alan Jackson. Don't miss that. That's going to be a big show. Someone said he already had 50,000 with the juror 11. Yeah, I think he did. Trying to remember. It was definitely around that number. I bet you're right. I bet he'll have even more for Jackson. That's why someone said 55,000. I wouldn't doubt if it's even higher than that. All right, I'm gonna. We got a Venmo tonight too. I want to check the Venmo real quick. Paula C sent $5 and said, "Why would the commissioner get involved? What are the McAlberts holding over their heads?" Good question. That is a very good question. I would love to see what Michael Cox has to say. Michael Cox needs to put out a statement. I don't know why there hasn't been so much pressure on this guy. He said nothing. He has said nothing. Barbara M just sent $10 and said gift. Barbara M. Thank you so much, Barbara M on Venmo. And I wanted to make sure I thanked from a couple days ago. I'm not sure if I thanked her. Kitty Cat sent $25 and said, well deserved for the hard work. XO Kitty Cat Naps. Thank you so much, Kitty Cat. I got all those ones in. Yep. A couple cash apps too. Beth P sent $10 and said for my legal fund. Oh, thank you so much, Beth P. I do have a legal fund right now. People may be aware of. I'm getting civilly sued for a ridiculous defamation case. Our Carly C said, "Thank you so much for having Jodene Weber on." Thank you so much, Carly. I like your last name, by the way, Carly. That's great. Thank you so much. Very happy to have Jodene on. It was my pleasure and honor. And always to have Bederow back on the show, too, is big. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting, watching, donating, sending all the great questions tonight. If I missed your question, I'm sorry. And I'm not sure when I'm going to be back again. I'm not sure. I'm thinking I'm going to take tomorrow night off. We'll see. But I do have I'm trying to like pace myself right now and take it a little bit slow, but I haven't really taken off much time. And I'm honestly not planning to right now because I feel like there's still so much going on after the Karen Reed trial here. I expected I was going to be able to take like a couple weeks off, but I just haven't done that. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens here. Look, I'm moving my camera around too much. Sorry. But definitely I'm probably going to take it a little slower, but I have some big guests planned. Let's just put it that way. Just like we did tonight. Tonight was a big show again. So just keep checking back. Make sure you subscribe, follow if you don't, and just check back. Check my Twitter, check our YouTube. Donnie B says, my ancestors are from County Cork too. We might be related. We may be related then. Brandy K says, I just bought Jodie's book, so you can tell her good job in getting her in here. She's gives me hope for Mel role model. So I just bought her book. Awesome. I'm glad you bought her book. Thank you so much, Brandy. I'll let her know that we sold at least one book tonight. You love me when I'm mad? I'm not mad tonight, though, am I? Did I get mad at anything? I saw one person. There's always one person in the chat saying, Mike's so baked right now. It's like, no, I'm not baked. If I was baked, you'd know it. I don't get baked. I'm like so high right now. I'm high on life. I'm high on the fact that we saw Karen Reed get found not guilty on the major charges. That's what I'm high on. But yeah, no, not tonight. There's nothing to get mad at. I need something. Bring up something I can get mad at, Rogue. What am I going to get mad at? I'm happy Jackson's on Turtle Boy. I think that's going to keep me going here. Oh, this is funny. I do have a bone to pick on this. It's like whoever this AI person is, the AI status, the baby AI, they keep tagging us, but they never put us in there. Like, don't ask me to share the shit if you're gonna put everybody else except for me. I want to get baby AI. No, turn me into a baby. I want to see the cute little feet. I saw some of you asking for it today too, which is funny. I was like, oh my god, now they're even noticing. I haven't been baby AI'd yet. Yes, if you want to find out more about Jodene or Jodie, we linked her website up in the chat. You can get a book right there too. So check the link at the top of the chat, pinned at the top of the chat if you want to get our book. And I'll try to put that also in the comments for the YouTube video after the chat is no more. Don't be such a baby about it. I am a baby. That's why they should turn me into a baby. I want to be baby eight-eyed. It's just cute. It's so funny. Like some of them, it's funny to see who are the cutest ones, like as babies. I gotta say, Baby Bederow is very cute. Aiden is also very cute as a baby. And Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson as a baby is the cutest freaking thing. He's always got his feet going. Young baby jerks. We need a young baby jerks. My baby Mike would be adorable. Do I still have the hair? Am I still doing this? And they'd have to get the hair flipped down. And then they'd have to get like, oh, Mike, you're muted. Oh, that's so funny. We're not exactly. I am boycotting until they make me a baby. I am very upset. I want all my jerks to attack them. We're gonna take them down if they don't turn me into a baby. We're protesting. Let's get a picket going. We're gonna go picket at that. I'm gonna knock on the door at their house. I need their address. They don't turn me into a baby. Baby Jackson is the funniest thing. It is. No, we're coming. We're coming for them. They don't turn me into a baby. Free baby Mike. This is a movement now. We've started a movement. We're gonna come up with signs and hashtags. Free baby Mike. Roll. We're gonna do a rolling rally. We definitely have to do a rolling rally. Do they have any games? Do they have any like kids soccer games or whatever? Yeah, you gotta if I'm a baby, you gotta have me smoking the split. That would be a good one. Oh, have me in my wrestling gear, like baby Mike in a wrestling suit. I gotta stop now because I'm gonna get in trouble on this show. This is getting inappropriate. Yeah, it might be too racy. That might be too much. That might be too much. I'm going there now. See, I knew you'd show up for me, Brandy. I knew you'd do that for me. Lacrosse game. I didn't want to say that. I said soccer game. Baby Mike is, yeah, we got to get Baby Mike trending on Twitter now. Yeah, I could walk the baby. Yeah, that would be perfect. Have me walking a bunch of baby puppies. Free baby jelly. Let's get it trending right now. Free baby jelly. Get it trending. I want to see, you know what I want to see? I want to see baby Mazza too. Where's baby Mazza? I know I'm having a hard time breathing right now. This is getting funny. The baby stuff. I'm very upset. They haven't babied me yet. Oh, I missed it, didn't I? No, I didn't go to that. I didn't go. I'm a little. I'm more like South North Shore now. It's funny because I used to think Gloucester was South North Shore, but it's north of me now. Because I used to be from like the real North Shore. There's different parts of the North Shore. But yeah, no, I didn't go. I didn't go. I've only been there like once or twice actually. It's a fun. Gloucester's fun though. Gloucester's always fun. I like the fishermen over there. You never been to a place like the Crow's Nest until never been to a place like Gloucester until you've been to the Crow's Nest at 10 a.m. and you see the fishermen drink it away after they've been out all for like 2 or 3 days, and they just like come in with all their money that they just made, and they're boozing it up at 10 a.m. in the morning. North Shore, yeah, North Shore. Yeah, Merrimack is like North Shore. That's definitely that's my neck of the where I used to run around in. Yeah. Newburyport area. That's the real North Shore. Now I'm more like I'd say I'm like mid to south, like, but I'm still in the North Shore, but I'd say like mid North Shore. That's the funniest thing is when you hear the voices with the babies. That's why like I love the Bederow one. It's just like, oh my God. New Ponset. Oh man, you're a South Shore. I get it. South Shore is nice too though. Oh, good harbor. Okay, I spent as a kid. That was my mom was a big beach person when I was a kid, and she used to take us to Good Harbor. That was like one of the regular beaches we would go to all the time. And then she started taking us to this pond area. I like that. That was like my favorite. We used to go to a couple other ones. Manchester Singing Beach was another one. Another big one was Cranes Beach. She used to take us to in Ipswich. But my favorite was always Good Harbor. I like that little island. You get the river. It's just Good Harbor. Great beach. Love it. Love it. Yeah, Ipswich is nice. Newburyport too. I used to work in Newburyport. I used to be a bartender waiter. The grog in Newburyport. Oh yeah. Those are some of the best days of my life up in Newburyport, definitely. Yeah, singing Beach and Cranes, yeah. All right, I guess I'm gonna go. You guys, I'm chatting away with my chat. I always like to do this at the end of the show. I just check you guys out, see where you're at. All right, Saturday night will be Turtle Boy. I'll see you there. Alan Jackson. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I love Salisbury Beach. I know I miss it too. I gotta get up there. I just saw some dude. He was reviewing Christie's and Tripoli's. I was like, oh, I need them both. I'm more of a Christie's guy, but I like Tripoli's too. I like all that beach pizza. My friend Michael Malta, the KOP, he used to vacation up in Salisbury every year, and he would laugh at me about the beach pizza. He would say, "It's the worst pizza ever." I love it. I love that beach pizza. I love Salisbury Beach too. I like the video games. I like knowing all the cops because I went to high school with most of them. I like all the gin joints up there and the music. And the only thing I got to say, you got to be careful of Salisbury and Plum Island too. That undertow. A lot of people get sucked out there that don't know how to deal with undertow. So that's the only thing you got to be careful of in Salisbury. And If you're experienced like me, you don't get caught in the undertow. You just swim to the side. Swim. If you ever get caught in the undertow, don't try to fight it. Don't try to swim right to the shore because it will suck you up. You got to swim side to side. You got to look at it like it's a river, and you got to swim to the side so that you can swim in later. But I love that beach pizza. Oh yeah. All right, enough about the North Shore beaches. We'll see you when we see you. I'm not sure when I'm doing next show. I'm working on some guests. We'll get some good shows up this week, I guarantee you. But I'll see you soon. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. Yes, bye in Lamoni. Have a great night, everyone.